Welcome back, everyone, to the EU Masters Play-ins. My name is Chronicler, joined by Bart Moswarm. We are reunited yet again, Bart, for the first time this play-ins to cast a team that we together saw win the Dutch League in a rather convincing way. The wins today have been a little bit more dicey.
Yeah, today has been a little bit more dicey. I remember the last game we casted must have been the deciding game between DK and PSV, where DK took the win. DK is still looking quite good, quite strong, and I do believe that if they end up winning the next game, this means that they're locked in for at least top 2. So they're going to be advancing to tomorrow, if they win, that is.
If they win, because the last game, I feel like between these two teams, we saw a very convincing DK win, but DK is also a team that recently looked to be more consistent, whereas Sector 1, interestingly enough, now that they've started losing, seem to be a little bit more inconsistent. I say this because I just came off a Sector 1 cast, and I love talking about Benelux teams. As DK has look to kind of shore up some of the inconsistencies that we really saw them in the mid-season. Whereas For The Win, I mean, they found their upset wins as well, but I don't know if they can actually match DK that now really seem to have kind of caught on steam.
Yeah, For The Win just really seems to be in quite an awkward spot after having such strong playoffs where they had a very close series against EGN. I have to say it correctly. They kind of appear to be in like a free fall. Yesterday, they unfortunately didn't really stand a chance against DK. We saw Alois popping off on the Aatrox, which is quite unfortunate for them, because they like to play through the top lane as well. These are two teams that don't really use their top lane as a weak side. We have Truklax versus Alois right there, and they both like to play with carries in that top lane.
And agree with you there. I do feel like, and this of course me being somewhat biased, but trying to play strong side against Alois, to me, someone who has seen the Benelux region for a while, seems like a risky play. And I feel like that's also what we saw last time, because it was very much about Alois' Aatrox, which is interesting because that is a champion that in 2019 he didn't really pick up when Aatrox was even more busted. Remember Revive Ultimate Aatrox? Like, no matter what happened, you would get the Revive.
And then you went GA as well, and then it was just one big mess in a team fight.
That was not really okay, huh? Like, because afterwards they changed it to that you needed the reset, and then even that was still not okay.
In hindsight, if you look at rework champions, there's a lot of stuff going on that really wasn't acceptable that we only can see now that champions start to be more fair. So yeah, it just happens.
I love how you. It's okay. It's okay. We'll just take it as it is.
I mean, remember AP Master Yi? Like, what was that abomination in the mid lane?
I mean, I know you're a Cyan enjoyer. If you want to talk about stuff.
Cyan. Oh yeah, I played that. Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, times change. Now Cyan's a tank in the top lane.
Yeah, and I mean, unless you want to go full AD and run it down, literally. But let's take a look at the game we're about to play here, because as we said, DK has showed themselves a team which, in the Dutch League, had a bit of a problem with their mid-jungle duo. Those weaknesses now seem to have been shored up, as both Chapapi and Hadess have been playing well. But if you look at the hard carry performances, I still feel like you look at their AD carry and the top laner, Goose and Alois.
Yeah, and that's something that we see DK do both in-game and in draft. Usually they give early draft priority to Goose, pick up a strong AD carry so he can sit comfortably in that bot lane, and they usually reserve either the first in the first draft phase the counter pick, or in the last draft phase the counter pick, to get a nice matchup for Alois in the top lane, and they just fill in the champions in between. So the weaknesses of that composition lie in the fact that you do sometimes get an awkward matchup for Hadess. You do have Chapapi, who gets put either on Xerath or Azir in the mid lane, and both of these champions can be punished by the likes of a LeBlanc, by the likes of a Tristana. So there are some weaknesses for the side of DK, but they have been looking way stronger lately.
And we immediately see the Xerath and the Yasuo ban come out. So paying attention to how strong Chapapi Xerath looked in the last game. And I gotta say, it also kind of reminded me of DK in previous seasons, where you see them just use the Xerath to stall right at Arcane used very liberally. Defusekids moving back to an oldie but a goodie. The J4 ban, so, you know, Goose can play the game. And the Ziggs ban coming out here as well. And For The Win, mainly paying attention to the game that we just saw against Mad Lions.
Yeah, which is also a fine strategy to have in the draft. You know that DK just come out of that win against Mad Lions. In that game, they played the Yasuo Nautilus bot lane. They played the Zard in the mid lane. Well, For The Win figure, we don't want to face the champions that they just won with. Next to those two bans, we see the Senna banned away, which means that Aphelios still is open. And in regards to that ban, we see DK banning away the Aphelios, which means that For The Win won't hesitate, lock in Sett for their first pick. And there we see the Lucian hover for Goose, which is yet again another Benelux special. Goose renowned for his Lucian play, especially in combination with a Braum, even though I expect DK to pick up a jungler here for Hadess.
Or you just go for Nightmares' Nautilus, which is pretty much the most iconic pick for him at this point. I feel like Defusekids put a lot of pride on that, and this is a bot lane that we've seen happen a lot in the Benelux, and I hope AFM and you are ready for it. Of course, one of the downsides is we've seen that Lucian does have some scaling problems, even in the playoffs that we saw. There was one game where Lucian didn't really pop off, and then, yes, you always have the potential for some crazy outplays, but not finding a lead makes it a lot harder. The Sett first pick here, and a LeBlanc blind pick here for Xaky, and that's an interesting one to me, because I feel like the LeBlanc is strong, as we see the Lucian also getting picked up there. For The Win, at least saying here, save the entire top side, very strong roaming and skirmishing potential.
Yeah, and I actually do like the LeBlanc blind pick right here, because you're kind of expecting the Defusekids to go for the Azir, and that would be a favorable matchup for the LeBlanc. However, the Defusekids do have the option to give Chapapi something even safer. I think even the Nautilus mid at this point could still be an option. We see the Rek'Sai locked in right here, which is a nice counter matchup to the Lee Sin. However, we have seen that Rek'Sai does have some scaling issues. Those really showed in the game that Mad Lions had against DK, where the Rek'Sai just doesn't end up doing anything in the late game. So we'll see how that champion plays out. Around it, we've arrived in the second ban phase. The Veigar being banned out, which might be a pocket pick for the bot lane that For The Win still has open. And so far, the top side for The Win seems very proactive, seems very aggressive in the early game, and the Defusekids really hasn't given anything away as far as top lane or mid lane concerns.
If we don't see a Gangplank ban here, I'm kind of, if we follow the Defusekids kind of guideline for what they've done thus far, I'm expecting, especially with Goose on Lucian, to see a weak side pickup here for Alois. Maybe you want to go for the Camille again. Last time that matchup went quite fine. It means that you're going to give up early, as a Tristana bend does come through there as well. But there is still some flexing potential, as you kind of hinted towards. We can see Chapapi pick up the mid lane Nautilus here. I mean, if you go Abyssal Mask first, LeBlanc's not going to have a really great time. And then you just followed it up with a Braum here in the bot lane, once you actually know the enemy bot lane. Because I feel like the one downside to the For The Win draft here is that they don't leave themselves a lot of flex potential, as we do see the Syndra and the Azir, regardless of the LeBlanc pick, getting banned away.
Yeah, and that is quite curious, because I was expecting them to ban away top laners that have a favorable matchup against the Sett. For The Win, taking the angle of we have the LeBlanc and we want to make sure that Xaky in the mid lane can completely stomp Chapapi regardless of what he picks. So eyes aimed at Chapapi. Looks to be the Orianna, which pretty much locks in the Nautilus for support as well. And classic Defusekid style, they leave the last pick open to give Alois a counter pick in the top lane, so he can be sure that he's either facing the Sett or another champion.
Because there is still the potential for a support Sett. It's not something that we've seen a lot here. And traditionally, he's paired with something like the Senna, which is a really strong combination. Hexflex, of course, also used to great effect for the Sett. But now they got to actually show their colors. What are they going to go for? The Heimerdinger is kind of the champion that you pick to kind of neutralize the Lucian. Just don't try to fight him too much. Set up your turrets and try to get a push on. And this would make you insanely happy. I can't imagine to actually go for it, but like, imagine Heimerdinger Shaco.
Heimerdinger Shaco bot lane.
Look at his face. Everyone chat looks. It's not going to be. So that it's actually means they knew how excited it would make you, and they still broke your heart. So he's then, I think, going to be support Sett. That does mean that For The Win Esports has drafted a full-on Sinner comp here, as the LCK casters will call it, with Renekton, LeBlanc, and Lee Sin.
Yeah, which does become quite awkward to play in team fights for the Heimerdinger at least, because you have 4 champions. You have the Renekton, the Lucian, the LeBlanc, the Sett, who all want to go forward, and then you have a Heimerdinger who kind of relies on his turrets. For the enemy, has to wait for the enemy team to jump on him. So the only thing I can imagine for the win to engage team fights is Heimerdinger throws out the ultimate, throws out the grenade, and stuns the entire enemy team, and then they try to run over the rest. Last pick for Defusekids is once again the Aatrox, the champion Alois found so much success with in their last match against For The Win. The Renekton, however, is quite a hard matchup in the top lane, at least as far as the early game is concerned. So I might expect either the Lucian or the Rek'Sai to be around that top side jungle to try to help out Alois and Truklax right there.
Now, if we look at his team composition as a whole, you've already said it. I do feel like Heimerdinger, just like the Senna would be, is a really strong combination with the Sett, because Facebreaker makes for such easy, guaranteed stun follow-up. But then I am kind of worried because I've seen so many of these Lucian and Nautilus lanes, and they never end well for the animated carry. If we look at top side over there, I feel like even with the Aatrox pickup, which is in 2 weeks, and the Rek'Sai still some early power as well, if you look at longer skirmishes, if you look at the mobility and like the amount of playmaking potential that you have, For The Win Esports both put themselves on the clock here, but also give them tools in the early game to really stick it to DK.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if the LeBlanc gets rolling, it becomes very obnoxious to play against for DK because they rely on, well, relatively squishy carries in the form of the Orianna, in the form of the Lucian. And those are prone and, well, immobile to be poked down or assassinated by a LeBlanc. So, yeah, I think there are some scaling issues on the side of For The Win, but they do have the tools to win skirmishes and win team fights once the mid game or late game arrives. As far as the bot lane is concerned, I think we're not really going to see any action right there. The Heimerdinger Sett do have a nice setup combo, but I do not expect the Nautilus or the Lucian to actually be looking for 2v2 fights, because that's kind of asking for trouble. We might just see Goose on the Lucian farming passively, and Nightmares looking for ganks, looking for roams towards mid or top, and see how that one plays out.
So all in all, we've seen both the drafts from both team here. I'm going to give you the opportunity to do a post-draft prediction. Of course, you are a Benelux caster, so if you don't vote DK, everyone will be very, very mad at you. But I expect that to, not hold you back with giving us your honest opinion. Who do you think is going to take the winner? Is DK going to lock in a guaranteed play-ins playoff spot, or are For The Win going to get the upset here?
Taking yesterday's match into account, I'm going to give the win to DK, even though I think that For The Win kind of have their fate in their own hands in the early game. If they manage to get rolling, we might see a very hard game for DK, and we might even see For The Win taking the win.
So what you're saying is you're biased?
Yeah, exactly that. I was trying to kind of hide it.
Yeah, I don't know why you're like being so round about that. You're biased.
yeah, well, pretty much. As we arrive on Summoner's Rift here for the third match of the evening, if I'm not mistaken, it's For The Win versus DK. DK needs this win, and if they take this win, they are locked in for top 2. It means they'll be advancing to the best of 3 matches tomorrow to try to advance to the main event.
It's actually a 4th game already. Time flies when you're having fun, and guarantee that we do have fun here at EU Masters. Oh, look at Hadess. He's just dancing it up. And I've got to say, I imagine the mood at DK has got to be amazing. You just won against Mad Lions, but even the fact that they're here in the first place was quite a surprise to many in the Benelux, including you, who predicted a 3-0 victory for their opponents in PSV.
Yeah, exactly. I believe you were closest with your predictions.
I was
still predicting a 3-2 in favor of PSV, but DK winning the Dutch League was a huge upset, to say the least.
I was going to say, just leave it at that. I was the closest. We don't need to get into any specifics about how close I was. As we see, mirrored starts here with Hadess. Is going to leave Alois kind of to his own devices, but Owner will be looking to maybe make something happen on the top lane. Unless Chapapi goes low, then maybe any potential for a mid-lane gank. But we've seen that Chapapi's consistency in lane has been... well, very consistent, to say the least, over the last couple. His consistency has been consistent, which, double consistency is pretty much as good as it gets.
It's the best kind, yeah.
When you play the kind of picks that Chapapi likes.
Yeah, even though I like the angle that For The Win has taken in... As we switch to the live feed here, there we go. Small technical issues on our side, but yeah, I like the angle that For The Win has taken in banning away the two most played mid laners by Chapapi, forcing him to play something rather awkward in the form of the Orianna that we haven't seen as much lately, and then having the matchup into Xaky, who has the LeBlanc in combination with the Lee Sin. So all the ingredients are there to punish Chapapi, and now let's see if they can actually make something out of this recipe and if they're going to be successful with it.
Loves Chapapi's positioning here. I don't think they actually have vision there, but we do see Ona getting pinged there by Chapapi, who's really hovering the bot side of the map where Hadess is, and they're not going to see a lot of action there. As you said, bot lane also not going to be the most exciting place and time. And you already mentioned 3 teleports here for The Win. So they're across the map plays are going to be amazing. But if I look at straight up team fights, 5v5 scenarios, it's going to be hard to best Defusekids coming in late with composite, with that Aatrox, with it Orianna on top of it as well. A lot of ball delivery systems. So For The Win, they need to make stuff happen. And that's much more easily said than done. How are they actually going to manage that?
Well, you have this very aggressive early game. You have the Lee Sin, you have the LeBlanc, you have the Renekton, all of which are champions who are strong in the early game and who can actually skirmish. But that kind of relies on Owner getting ganks off. Hadess looking for a gank in the bot lane, gets spotted out by a turret placed by Heimerdinger in the tri-brush over there. Owner yet again pressuring this top side river, going for the Scuttle Crab, might be looking towards another gank on Chapapi, but Chapapi still keeping the bot side Raptor entrance for Owner's jungle warded, which means he can play safely towards this bot side, which means we most likely won't see Lee Sin getting off any successful ganks in the mid lane. It's not going to stop him from trying, though.
Chapapi, yet again, very careful with his positioning, but that cannon minion has killed many a man, and they're going to make a play on that as we see the bot lane here. Take it easy. Chapapi, not even force a flash, just can walk out fairly easily. As Xaky not really in a position to hit the chain there, I imagine that makes it a lot harder for Owner to do some damage. Don't want to take the risk as Hadess helping Alois out a little bit with setting up a big push here in top lane.
Yeah, it's we saw Alois being pushed under his turret for the last couple of minutes, and he might just be wanting to reset on the Aatrox. This is why we see Hadess in the top lane pushing out the minion wave, which does mean you sacrifice some solo XP on the Aatrox in favor of getting him to actually reset. This also means that Truklax can freeze the wave in front of his turret, which might force Alois' hand and have him teleport back to the top lane to break the freeze, as we see him do right now. Picks up the Ninja Tabis as a first item, which isn't really an aggressive buy, but it does help you survive against both the Renekton and the Lee Sin, who are primarily physical damage focused.
Now you got me thinking, outside of Dominus, of course, like AP Lee Sin, is that a thing? I assume you've played it in ARAM.
Well, I think only your safeguard skills with AP, so you become like a worse version of Janna.
But does that stop you though?
Yeah, no. Something being bad doesn't stop me. But as for me playing AP Shaco yesterday. But yeah, see Hadess coming towards the mid lane, doing the same for Chapapi that he just did for Alois in the top lane, just helping him shove out the wave. Chapapi being low on mana means he most likely wants to reset. You don't want to be a sitting duck in that mid lane, being unable to farm the waves.
Hadess just being like, thank you, I'll take all that XP, I don't mind. I'm very happy to do so. As
because you get to be a very helpful jungler and still soak up a lot of the XP here. Another minion wave going towards the Rek'Sai, which means that he's going to find a substantial lead over the Lee Sin, actually. Owner still sitting at level 4. Has started off this Drake, is most likely unspotted and will be secured by For The Win because they also have bot lane pressure. They're setting their first step towards the Dragon Soul goal eventually. Ocean Drake goes down. Next Drake will be the Cloud Drake, which means that we will be seeing the Infernal or the Mountain Rift, both of which are, well, very influential souls, if you ask me.
No clowns here on the Rift today, unless the players have something else to say about that, but it hasn't come that far yet. As Alois is setting up a big slow push here. Maybe wants to go for something with Hadess, although I imagine that diving or an actor is not something that you're generally going to be very happy about. Might open up the possibility for some shenanigans, maybe an invade on the top side blue that is about to spawn. Get that to Chapapi. as we do see Hadess now spotting that out. We'll see that come up. And now comes the lane swap, almost inevitable, really, that is executed here by For The Win. DK, though, slow to respond, and Rift Herald spawning in 30 seconds.
Yeah, the dragon goes down, which means the most contested objective will be this Rift Herald, which usually results in the bot lane swapping towards the top lane, so you can have the man advantage, or at least equal man numbers around that Rift Herald. DK is kind of slow in this swap, which indicates that they might not favor this Rift Herald as much. Are moving 4 people towards this bot side. They're gonna go for the turret plates, but I'm not sure if this is gonna be worth it if they don't find the kill on Truklax as well. Hadess going for the counter jungle. Chapapi moving back towards the mid lane. They don't really find what they were looking for. Meanwhile, turret plates in the bot lane and turret plates in the top lane being traded so far. And the Rift Herald also being started by Owner. Kind of indicates that For The Win is getting the most out of this trade.
Alois, though, able to keep his turret a little bit more healthy. As, like you say, Defusekids kind of accepting that they can't really do early skirmishes against For The Win. And as a result, they say, fine, we are just going to make our own proactive play around the bottom of the half of the map. As you say, with Bulwark being as strong as it is, I don't expect them to actually be able to get first turret blood here, which is going to be handily grabbed here on the next wave by For The Win. But Defusekids won't even be at that much of a deficit here if they pick up a couple of plates.
And they spawn the Rift Herald very early as well, which means that it becomes hard to kill the last plate, or at least the last bit. It's not really going to prove to be an issue here because you also have the Heimerdinger to put down turrets as well. Means first turret blood goes towards For The Win, not for long, because we're going to see the turret lead equalize here in the bot lane, which brings us to a dead even gold score right now. But the Rift Herald's going to get his second charge off in the top lane as well, which means that that will end up staying at approximately half HP.
Interesting here, though, is that DK still dead even. Now, the one Ocean Drake is the only advantage that For The Win have at the moment in terms of pressure. Both these turrets not too significant in the grand scheme of things. But if you look at the CS numbers, Alois doing what we have seen him do so many times. Also, recently himself retweeted a comment that said, Alois would sell his own parents for 10 CS per minute. Thus far, not hitting 10 CS per minute, so something definitely going wrong there.
Yeah, but 10 CS per minute becomes increasingly more easy, between brackets there, to hit as the game progresses, because you do not only get to farm your own wave, you also get to farm jungle camps from Hadess.
I don't take kindly to you trying to criticize my criticizing of Alois. You know, like, the guy gets so much praise. Sometimes we just need to be real with him, as he's going to be caught in an awkward 1v2 scenario here. Dragon Rage does come in. First blood has not fallen yet this game. Alois will have help from Chapapi, who has the shockwave available. And now it is still 5 people on the bottom half of the map, so they can't actually go in on this. As I guess we're just going to have another turret trade. Yeah,
but this is actually fine for Defusekids. As we've discussed, the team compositions, For The Win really needs to find something in the early game. And straight up trading turret plates is just not going to get them to the point where they need to be. If the gold lead remains to stay this equal, it kind of means that Defusekids are getting the best out of this trade, because they pretty much are going to outskill in the latter portion of this game. We just looked at the individual goal leads, and for the win, it's the LeBlanc that we're supposed to be looking at.
Alois going in deep there, trying to defend the turret, but with the plates as they are, I actually think he's going to be able to do it. Now, Xaky also making his way over there, and that surely is going to mean demise for the Alois, because there's no teleports, no assists available whatsoever. Alois doing his very best, trying to clear that wave here. He's not going to be able to stay alive for a little longer. Facebreaker takes him very low. There comes the LeBlanc. Chains do find him, but there's no wave.
He actually manages to survive there, because he could clear the wave with his 3 Qs. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Defusekids proceeding to push the turrets that For The Win still has.
Now, they're not only do they defend that turret, but now they have a gold lead here. And yes, you're going to give up a Drake, although Alois teleporting bot might have something to say about that. But it's a Cloud Dragon, meaning that the Defusekids can just say, that's fine. You get an Ocean and a Cloud. We're going to get X amount of mountains or Infernals. Will be Infernals here. Like you said, For The Win is making plays, but Defusekids is answering them so well with their own proactive plays. and now they find a 1.4 gold lead with a composition that scales a lot better.
Yeah, so far we've seen 12 third plates taken down for Defusekids and 9 third plates taken down for the win, which does mean that Defusekids has gotten more money out of that. Hadess has to flash away from Xaky on the LeBlanc. He's very strong in this early game, has finished his Luden's Echo, and is looking to assassinate anyone that's immobile on the side of Defusekids. Doesn't manage to get the kill, but does manage to blow the flash from the Rek'Sai.
You know what this is feeling like? It's feeling like an LCK game, where 13 minutes, no first blood. These are the types of games I like. Oh no, don't ruin the lack of first blood. Dragon's Rage gets used defensively, and he flashes up, but the Ignite tick will get him in the end. First blood picked up for Nightmares.
That's a cast of curse if I've ever heard one. First blood going over 2 Nightmares on the Nautilus, picks up the kill with the Ignite.
Come on, Defusekids, be cool. The second I say it.
Yeah, well, first blood was really overdue at 13 minutes.
Yeah. So I feel like Alois should have died.
Like yeah, fair enough. Oh yeah, he definitely should have died.
He should have died there, right? Like, that wasn't just me. As we see some camps being taken here, as now across the board, For The Win's deficit in a vacuum wouldn't seem so bad. But if you look at the way that composition is supposed to play, if you look at the straight up front to back teamfight composition that Defusekids can play very easily with really great skirmishing power once Aatrox hits his 2 spikes, as Alois has to use Ward under there to get out, then that 2.5k gold lead actually is going to feel much bigger once they get to actual fights.
Yeah, I have to imagine that the team for Defusekids gets to be really oppressive to play against, because For The Win wants to go forward with most of their champions, but then you have the risk of walking into the Nautilus, you have the risk of walking into the Shockwave that Orianna still has available, and then it just becomes very hard to play actual team fights. See Defusekids swapping lanes once again, trying to find the pick onto Xaky here. Hasn't died yet and manages to simply dash away as LeBlanc does. DK taking control of this top side jungle. And even though DK has the gold lead, they have to pretty much make sure that they do get the next dragon, because otherwise For The Win might be at soul point at, well, 26 minutes in, which is not a position that you want to face them in, of course.
No, first 2 Drakes, giving those up is fine. Also, a DK with 4 Infernal Souls. that's
quite crazy.
They're playing even though here, though.
Yeah, DK starting off the Herald. For The Win's not having any of it. Truklax is in the bot lane, has teleport available. So far, it's a 5v4. Third in the bot lane goes down.
Do we find the hook? That teleport immediately comes in, and Alois also making his way as the suplex throws Nightmares into the rest of the team. Shockwave find free, and that's really big. Joe doing his best, but doesn't actually find enough damage with the Haymaker, and now it is an even trade. Chapapi flashes forward there, uses the heal to give the rest of the team some ability. As we see Rift Tower getting picked up, Alois not having had enough yet. He wants more, bloodthirsty as Aatrox is, forces the flash out of AFM, and it's a big Defusekids win.
Yeah, it's a 2-for-1 in favor of Defusekids. They also pick up the Rift Herald, who gets immediately summoned in the mid lane to take down this mid lane outer turret, which also means that the Rift Herald will get off a second charge towards the mid lane inner turret. Defusekids chooses not to stick around and push down another turret, goes for the reset, goes to spend the money that they just earned, and looks towards their next objective, which will be the Infernal Dragon spawning in 1 minute. After that fight at the Rift Herald, I can only imagine that they're very confident. We saw Chapapi's Shockwave having quite a big impact there, because For The Win, once again, they have one way to play team fights, and that is only forward, which means that Chapapi's Shockwaves are going to be very crucial in the next team fight as well. Dragon spawns in 40 seconds, and by that time, most ultimates will be available once again. If we look at the individual gold leads, then the most noteworthy ones are on Lucian, on that 80 carry position. And, well, actually for the Orianna as well, who now is ahead in gold against the LeBlanc, even though he's close to 20 CS behind.
It's not a good position to be as LeBlanc, as you said, Xaky. If he doesn't start finding some kills in these skirmishes, his pop-in power, the ease with which LeBlanc can just dash in and evaporate carries, is going to kind of be diminished. Also noteworthy is that Goose does have the exhaust here, which for assassins like the LeBlanc is kind of troublesome. Now, this is a big team fight here. If DK win this, they delay a soul point from For The Win, and they might also get in an even more comfortable position, as we just saw that last fight did go in favor A lot of summoners now not available. Alois trying to play guard duty here. Orna making his way over. Hades is a level up, but we see there a lot of damage coming down Chapapi, who has to play defensively. Dominance used by Truklax, but he gets too deep, too far. Suplex tries to find a kill on Chapapi. Not enough yet. Haymaker is not enough, while Hades on his own is doing a lot of damage. Beautiful interrupt there on Ona, but still way too much. But with Alois chasing down, getting a reset on World Ender, I don't think that they can really contest this Drake here as Goose makes his way over, whereas Alois is slapping minions aggressively with that Darkened Blade. And in the end, yet again, it's a 3-for-1 trade here found by the Defusekids, who look to be in firm control of this game as they are looking to pick up their first Infernal.
A favorable trade for the Defusekids, who are now looking to kill this Infernal Dragon. They do not have a jungler alive, and Owner is still alive. However, he gets zoned away by Nightmare's presence in that bot side jungle, which brings the Dragon score to 2-1. Infernal Dragon, of course, a singular Infernal Dragon, not as strong as they used to be, but for the Defusekids, it's mainly important that they deny For The Win this Dragon, so For The Win doesn't get close to that Infernal Soul.
And I gotta say, once you start picking up a second and a third one, that's when it becomes really dicey. Because For The Win, they're looking to outburst you, right? If you look at what the competition wants to do. If you have 2-3 Infernal Drakes, that becomes a whole lot harder. Now, my main question is, we set up this game as the Defusekids, if they take this, they're definitely in the playoffs for play-ins. And currently, they are looking like they have an advantage. Their skirmishing has been going well. They've won the last couple of team fights. Objective traits have been going favorable. How does a For The Win get this one back in their own control?
Well, For The Win still has the opportunity and still has the tools that they need to find team fights. However, you do not want to fight DK 5-on-5. You do especially not want to fight team fights where both Chapapi and Alois are there. So maybe it's better to try to look for the picks that they're looking for here in the mid lane. Chapapi doesn't have flash, does have heal in a couple seconds, but that won't save you from Lucian insecting you into the enemy team. Doesn't manage to find the hop over the wall, so he just counter jungles the Raptors, and that will be that. Leaves Chapapi to clearing the minions in the mid lane.
My main question is, as I said before, because I feel like you kind of dodged around, what do you actually do here as For The Win if you don't find backline access, or if the Defusekids keep grouping, just playing for these major objectives, and don't actually give you the opportunity to pick off singular targets? Because I feel like the solo lanes are also so far behind. Renekton not going to be able to really do anything against this Aatrox. Truklax, of course, can be fine with wave clearing, but Alois is looking like an absolute devil here, building towards his death dance. Not really sure if you can do anything besides just farm in front of your turret. And that means that the Defusekids is going to have constant pressure, and it's going to be For The Win who somehow get out of this with a pick or two, pick up a big objective, and try to snowball from there.
Yeah, I feel like For The Win have to utilize the fact that they have 3 teleports against the 1 teleport that DK has, which means that you can, if you want to, force a 1-3-1 situation where one of the members of the Defusekids is forced to mirror one of your solo laners and won't be able to join a team fight that you teleport towards, which will eventually result in a man advantage team fight in favor of For The Win. This does, however, become quite hard to execute when you take into account that both the solo laners for DK are ahead of their counterparts, because then it just becomes quite hard to execute.
You know, just up.
Well, that's
Goose?
something you definitely do not want to see. We see that Goose has used his exhaust, which kills the assassin, and he follows up the exhaust by actually killing the assassin. So kudos to him, which is kind of a slap in the face of Xaky, because as a LeBlanc, it's kind of your job to blow up squishies, and this time it's the squishy blowing you up.
You say squishy, but I mean, Goose has also, as Blade Doing King, has a lot of lifesteal, has the exhaust as you mentioned, but also gotten for the Mercury threats here, meaning that it's so much harder for Xaky to actually blow him up with that magic resist that he currently has. Xaky also not building any magic penetration, and giving Goose a couple of seconds extra might be more than enough to give him the opportunity to actually kill you. As yet again, look at DK. They're playing this by the book as much as I've seen in a long time. Just get the backs in a minute before Drake. You know, get Prio there, set up vision control on the bot side jungle, pick up that second Infernal, and just play it out cleanly from there.
And I do really like the buys that are coming through from DK as well, especially the stopwatch that Goose just picked up. In the last team fight, we saw that the stopwatch for Chapapi was crucial in not being blown up at the start of a fight, which resulted in the 3-1 victory in favor of DK. And now we see Goose picking up a stopwatch for himself as well. Pretty much saying that I don't mind if Truklax or I don't mind if Xaky ends up flashing on top of me to see me or try to burst me, because I'm going to survive for the first couple of seconds either way. And then I know that my team will have my back. Next to that stopwatch, we see important 2 item spikes coming through for all DK carries as well. And for the side of For The Win, it's, well, for now, only the Heimerdinger that's sitting on 2 items. So the 5k gold lead manifesting itself in the items currently as well.
It's a very confident Defusekids, which we're seeing here. For The Win, of course, unfortunately, under a lot more pressure and also not in the greatest of spots at the moment. And I gotta say, I've casted Slugfest all day. It's nice to see a game that feels very controlled, with neither team doing absolutely crazy stuff. Map rotations actually being executed with poise and grace, and they fought behind it, as we see the second Infernal also going over here. Like the call from For The Win here to just say, guys, we're not going to be able to contest. Just try to get an objective elsewhere.
Yeah, Hadess picking up the Drake by himself, leaving the Heimerdinger in the mid lane to clear the wave. Meanwhile, Xaky and Owner in the top lane end up killing the top lane inner turret. So there's a trade of objectives right there, which kind of closes the gold lead that DK has. However, DK does pick up the second Infernal Drake, which we of course cannot see in the gold score, but it does end up giving everyone that little bit of extra AP and AD, which can make the difference in team fights. Once again, we see both teams going for a small or partial reset after an objective goes down to spend their money and prepare themselves for the next objective. Baron is available, but I do not expect either team to go for that objective as long as all 5 enemies are alive.
Do you think Chapapi's going to pick up the Forbidden Book? I see a blasting wand. I've seen Oblivion Orb.
And there he goes. Usually... I'm not too sure about this buy, even though I understand that you want to make sure that absolutely no healing is coming through for the side of For The Win. But the only one really healing on that side is going to be the Renekton, who has, of course, the Call of Meek that brings healing and has the Blade of the Ruined King as well. But maybe another item on Orianna would have been more favorable here. Who's going to tell? We see Chapapi picking up the blue buff at least, which is going to make wave clearing against the Heimerdinger a lot easier. However, now we see For The Win posturing around this Baron. Sett auto attacks it once. Pretty sure he wanted to clear the ward and misclicked.
It's fine. He has his passive. He's okay. It's okay, Bart.
Yeah, Haymaker the Baron. Do it.
Just slap him. Break his face. That's what Sett loves to do. Unfortunately, Baron not as easily impressed as some of the champions and Summoner's Rift are, and also this Sett, a support Sett. Just that man's Blade, no Blade of the Ruined King, no Triforces, no Black Cleavers, no damage to really speak of. As Defusekids, as cleanly as ever, he's going to start at the Baron, but I do feel like this is more of a bait to get For The Win to actually fight them. Yeah,
Nightmare standing around the corner. They do have vision control with 2 pink wards. They're waiting for The Win to face check them here, and then they're going to try to look for a fight. They don't want to finish this objective.
And here we go, the engage coming through. That on you, teleport coming in, showstopper used very aggressively. Haymaker can't even be used as he gets bursted down. Not enough grit on that Sett as Alois is standing forward. You need to be careful about the poke coming out here, because they are taking somewhat low, the combination of Baron and the poke being landed left and right. But Defusekids find a free kill. And as mentioned numerous times, if you can just trade kills evenly here, if you can just keep the pace of the game low, you're more than happy to take those as Defusekids.
Showstopper from Sett. They're coming in huge, but not huge enough. Fight results in a 1-4-0 kill lead for DK, who still has a 5k gold lead at the moment, but they might have been looking for more in that team fight than a 1-kill advantage. They sent Alois back to bot lane after that reset. Want to make sure that Alois can face Truklax in a 1v1 situation, because Alois has teleport available where Truklax does not, which means contesting a Baron for the win might become problematic.
Oh, that's also a big gold lead. They're in the top lane. Truklax not having the most fun game here on Renekton. Renekton feels very fun when you're ahead, really oppressive with his trading pattern, Call the Meek, get a stun in, get out. But if you're behind, it's not nearly as enjoyable, and we can see that here as he is able to match Alois. Alois now backing picking up a Spectre Scowl, building towards that Spirit Visage, because Xaky didn't already have an unfortunate enough game, and AFM is also going to do approximately negative damage on the Aatrox once that's also finished with the amount of MR that Alois has been able to stack up. And I'm going to be looking at some Void Staffs. AFM already looking to build towards that, whereas Xaky is, I think, going to go for an Oblivion Orb, but at this point, I'd much rather see the Void Staff come through with the amount of MR already on the Defusekids.
Yeah, if Xaky doesn't go for the Void Staff, then AFM will really have to go for one. Otherwise, no one's going to actually be able to kill Alois on the Aatrox. He's looking to be building that Spirit Visage next, and then his passive hitting in combination with the Death Dance will pretty much make him become unkillable. And then we'll see For The Win probably getting flashbacks towards that game yesterday where a similar thing happened.
I was about to say, this feels very reminiscent of last game, and particularly the Aatrox part of it all. Alois now getting actually back to his 10 CS per minute. You know, I gave him a little bit of a tough time earlier in the game for not actually hitting that. I mean, he's not at 280 yet, but we'll cut him some slack, you know. He's close enough. As Drake spawns in 10 seconds. I'm not sure why For The Win is setting up a trap here. Because I do not see why the Defusekids would move up there. Maybe they want to go for the Baron themselves, but you don't have your Heimerdinger.
Yeah, Heimerdinger has teleport. LeBlanc's in the bot lane has teleport as well. DK has to move over towards the Baron to make sure that For The Win isn't doing it. They've used the blue trinket there, so they know if any shenanigans are going on. For The Win knows they're spotted, disengage from the Baron, and now we're going to see DK moving over towards the Drake with at least a couple of people. So far, it looks like Alois is going to be picking up the Drake solo, has teleport to join his team if need be. And I don't see any steal potential coming through from the side of For The Win, which is going to mean that we see the third Infernal Drake going over towards the side of DK, putting them at soul point at 34 minutes.
It feels to me like DK is going for like the 100% win play here. As we do see the Baron getting started For The Win, realizing we need to make a play at some point. We need to go and try something. I'm just not sure if this something is that something you need to do to win the game. Truklax standing there in the flank. DK,
it doesn't reset if you have Heimerdinger there. DK knows that this is going on.
Yeah, and you just running interference there as Alois is going to teleport into the pit. They're actually going to get the Baron here as no steal comes through. Dragon Rage used offensively. Sett already down though as Jew gets destroyed by Chapapi. Are they going to get these recalls off? The answer is no for AFM. The answer is also no for Truklax, who is going to survive for a little bit. Renekton is a very tanky crocodile, but will not be indefinitely as he's running towards the turrets, and there's not a lot of, fruitful land or opportunities there. I'm not sure why you invested flash there.
You don't really want to flash there because you're going to die either way.
But
in the end, it's Baron going towards For The Win in a trade for 3 kills. And I think at the point where For The Win is right now, you take that trade every day. It takes the wind out of the sails of DK, who actually probably won't mind as much. Now you've got to wait for the Baron buff for another 2 minutes and 10 seconds. However, DK were most likely going to play against their Infernal Soul win condition anyway. DK does, however, have to be careful in the next couple of minutes because there's still Baron buff available on Xaky and Owner, I believe. And the LeBlanc is looking quite scary right now.
Yeah, I think Juice still has it as well, although I'm not entirely sure. I feel like 2 people there is Owner going deep on Chapapi. Chapapi immediately uses the heal and will stay alive with the use of that summoner. Owner trying to get a play going. They will see him run away though, not wanting to deal with any nasty reinforcements coming out from DK. DK now need to sit tight for the next minute and a half, but as you said, I don't even feel like For The Win really has any opportunity to use this dragon aggressively, because if you look at the comp, sieging against DK is not really going to work, especially considering the 6k gold lead that they have.
Yeah, sieging, you really have to respect the Orianna ball on the ground, which means you can't really walk up. And if you can't walk up, it becomes increasingly hard to siege. You can rely on the LeBlanc hopping forward and getting singular auto attacks off on the turret, but that's not the most effective way of actually killing turrets. For The Win sitting in the mid lane here with 4 of their members actually, while Truklax split pushes in the top lane. This time it's For The Win that do have the teleport advantage, as Alois does not have teleport right now. DK is looking for a flank in the mid lane.
Whereas Xaky's trying to make lane Chapapi. Chapapi says, thank you very much. You as a Baron, but I'm Orianna, I can wave clear. And 4 of my guys are goon squatting right over to your base, immediately forcing a response out from For The Win, who don't have Baron on anyone, mind you. They need to be very careful about how and when they approach, and that means we're just going to see DK apply some pressure on the map, base and keep playing this game as meticulously as they have been doing thus far.
I really like this for DK because I don't think they would have made this call in the Dutch League regular season. The call to really respect your enemy, even though you know that you're way ahead in this game, and go for the reset where you also could have forced a 4v4 fight in the bot side, which can go poorly for you. Instead of doing that, they go for the reset. They wait out the Baron buff, which is due to expire, well, which actually expired on For The Win right now. Now you can set your eyes on the dragon, which is going to spawn in 1.5 minutes. We see the pink wards coming through.
They're so respectful. Look at the itemization as well. Look at Goose going for a Hex Drinker here, right? And Mercury Frats. Look at Hadess' itemization. Look at Alois not going for more damage, as we might expect from him, but going for even more sustain and healing. Alois, throughout the entirety of this game, has just been saying, guys, we're going to guarantee that we get into playoffs. Playoffs of play-ins, obviously. Minute left on the clock. Gonna reset here. Synchronized recourse for everyone as they pick up, quick cloak here, a Jorum's Fist there. Just a couple of little tidbits. Chapapi also with the Banshee's Veil. I just don't know how For The Win is going to win this next team fight. And if they don't win the next team fight, they lose the Infernal Soul. And I think DK from that point on is just going to not give them any opportunity to get back to the game, because that's how they've been playing this far. Like, it's slow, yes, but you gotta understand what DK is coming from. For the window, they gotta feel like they're being very slowly, but very deliberately being choked out of this game, with the gold lead now ballooning to 8k. And I don't know if they have a plan how to get back, because I have a hard time envisioning one.
DK setting up the waves properly in the sides. You see in the top lane a slow push towards For The Win. In the bot lane, that's the case as well. DK is postured in this bot side river and wants to trying to look for an engage on For The Win before they start the Drake. They're pretty much zoning For The Win again, For The Win away as Goose starts this Drake off.
Two-man shockwave there. Suplex throws Alois into the fight, but it doesn't even matter. Haymaker is used aggressively as Truklax does find his way onto Hadess. Alois and Nightmares are basically 2v4ing there without so much as a problem. And now the Infernal Soul is picked up, which means that these fights are going to be even more one-sided. Xaky is a very slippery LeBlanc, so we'll probably get out here. But the Defusekids, now the gold lead even bigger, are going to be able to shove here with 3 people down here and just LeBlanc and Lucian, who haven't found a lead all game. Do see 2 Void Staffs now here, which I like, but I think it's going to be way too little too late as Defusekids march their way into For The Win's base.
The question is Defusekids going to go for... Yeah,
100% win.
I was going to say, do you go for the correct call and go for the reset here, or do you go full Defusekid style and try to actually end the game there? Of course, the Defusekids we've seen today, they go for the safe option. They go for the reset. They have the Infernal Soul. They've taken the inhib. Now you reset, buy your items, get your pink wards, go for the next Nash, and then look to end the game in the next couple minutes. I don't think you want to play around the Elder Dragon, because there's still the small chance that owner ends up taking it with a Smite Steal, and for the Baron, you just have a much easier time setting up the vision. And I don't think For The Win is going to be able in a position to actually contest this.
Also feel like of the 2 objectives, like if they steal the Elder, you can like somehow there's suddenly an opportunity that you lose a team fight. Whereas with Baron, we've seen Defusekids can just like For The Win can't do anything with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It just, even if it does get stolen, some miracle play, they're gonna have to sacrifice members. They're gonna have to sacrifice positioning. And then DK just says, well, okay, now you have Baron. Doesn't really change how we conduct ourselves in this fight, as Defusekids take Baron. I don't know what more I can make of this.
Yeah, meanwhile, For The Win is pushing mid lane and bot lane as well. We see Ju on the Sett sitting in the bot side jungle, but it's not really gonna matter. Baron buff coming through for DK, which means Alois is gonna have the Baron empowered minions in the top side already, which means top lane inner turret for The Win will be falling quite shortly. Truklax trading a turret back, though, in the bot side inner.
That's nice.
He might get collapsed on here by the rest of DK. Never mind, turret survives with, under 50 HP, I imagine. Alois goes for the reset after taking the top lane inner turret. And now we see DK. They pretty much have the choice which lane they want to siege and how they want to posture themselves. I imagine they want to go for a 1-4 composition, because Alois is so strong in the side lane. I don't think any member of For The Win can actually stop the Crocodile. Looking at his items, he has the Sterex right now as well next to the Spirit Visage. So in extended team fights, I pretty much think that Alois can 1v3 on the Aatrox.
Moswarm,
very scary.
Say, you're LeBlanc, right? You want to assassinate people. You look at the Defusekids' items.
Yeah, it feels real bad.
What do you do?
Feels really bad, actually.
The correct answer is you can't really do anything. Goose is the only one who seems somewhat eligible, and he still has Hex Drink and Merc Threats and Exhaust and Flash. And I'm trying to say here is Defusekids is looking to take a very slow but a very deliberate win here over For The Win, who unfortunately could not live up to their name with a nice early game composition that just didn't find the snowball that it needed. Defusekids playing the last 20 minutes of the game in basically the same style. They're not even going in here. Who is this Defusekids?
Yeah, they've... Oh, and as you said it,
there we go.
Goalstopper coming through.
Chu goes in deep, does find the Haymaker, but he doesn't have the damage necessary. Alois goes in very aggressively on the back line. We see Xaky trying to delete something, but at this point, the damage is just not enough. And that's gonna be it. Hadess goes in aggressively. Look at that beautiful timing there for the stopwatch. A double kill for Chapapi. And this is a Defusekids that we can, with very much conviction, say deserves the win here and does knock themselves for, I think, the first time in like the Benelux actually like consistently winning games. So that's great for the win. I love the plan they went for with the draft, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough. And I think on that note, we are going into a break, and then we will be coming back to you with DK versus Kenty. Don't go anywhere, because we'll be back in only a matter of minutes.